here's the take I do have, regardless of how this season pans out. This is Jurgen Klopp's last season with Liverpool.
Hello and welcome back to just another football podcast. Back again, joined. We've got a full house tonight. All the lads are with me. How you getting on, boys?
I've had a great weekend despite all Premier League football being cancelled. I've had a great weekend. Philadelphia Union won 5-1 and Philadelphia Union 2. Well, Philadelphia Union, Philadelphia Union won 5-1. Philadelphia Union 2 won 6-1. And I was at both games. So I've seen 11 goals scored, 2 conceded for us over 12 hours, let's say. It was an amazing weekend.
Beat me to it, George. At least someone
I had a Philly cheesesteak for dinner this evening. It was lovely.
Yeah, I feel like it's a bit overrated. What do you think? Did you enjoy it?
The one I made myself was absolutely delightful.
Nice. All right. Always back yourself in that.
We really are grasping, aren't we? There's just been nothing to talk about this weekend. Obviously, for obvious reasons, no football was played over the weekend after the passing of the Queen.
Philadelphia Union took over the Supporters' Shield standings.
Oh, mate, haven't we all? Haven't we all? Like
that's what you're meant to do. Apparently,
no comedy.
Sit in your home and just watch the BBC.
That's wrong, Fergal. Actually, what you're supposed to do anything that makes money. You still got to go to work. Still got to earn a living. Still got to contribute to the economy.
It's in football, unless your job is dependent on football.
Yeah, I mean,
for any football coaches, any
don't be doing that.
Anybody refereeing at the weekend.
The Wensleydale Cheese League was cancelled this weekend, as I'm sure the Queen would have wanted. So
on a request,
Wensleydale Under Sevens League.
Yeah,
good God.
You're meant to just sit at home and watch the BBC News film
all day.
A Tour de France like coverage of the Queen's body being transported from Balmoral.
I did think that was a bit excessive today. I'm not gonna lie. Like all the other stuff, whatever.
I felt sorry for the presenters. I was like, that is something.
They did a sterling job. I've got to say, like some of them literally sat there anchoring for hours and hours and hours on end. I mean, you gotta give it to them. They're earning their corn there because
absolutely.
How on earth they fill the time? I do not know. So. Full credit to them.
I will say Philadelphia Union also had a moment's silence for the Queen.
Yeah.
Which I didn't expect. Yeah, we did.
Really?
Yeah. So, it was 10 seconds. It wasn't anything. But it was booed by
10 seconds?
Yeah. That's not like that. It's a moment's silence. Please join us for a moment's silence for Queen Elizabeth II.
Yeah.
And
I thought,
okay, good. Do highlight. We'll just be quiet, and then you interrupt us whenever the moment passed. So, how long of a moment was it from now?
Thank you. Something like that.
Wow. That's really moving scenes. To be fair, I mean, you could see why they went with that.
Having said that, I thought the whole point of the US was to not care about a queen or king, but anyway,
yeah,
just
I mean, look, I think not to go into. I think it was a ridiculous decision for no football to take place this weekend. Particularly, I think what they thought would happen, probably the Premier League, is they would cancel and then all the other sports would follow. And kind of what's actually happened is they've cancelled and then all the other sports have gone, well, we'll take your viewers for the weekend. I'm not saying that was their thought process, but that's probably what's happened.
I also think that I think it's also that these people in power just seem to not trust football fans.
Football isn't trusted as a sport. It's looked down on.
I think that they didn't trust every football team and fan not football team, every football fans to be respectful in the moment's silence. And that's why Scotland definitely didn't go ahead. But yeah, that'd be my guess as to why it didn't. It was too much of a risk to leave it up to the public.
Yeah. Well, football's got to return at some point, and so it'd be interesting to see what the reaction is then.
I know it's like you're giving Celtic fans 2 weeks to come up with what their best thought is.
Yeah.
They might just take the Frankfurt banner from last year, perhaps.
I was supposed to go to the Celtic game on the 1st of October as well, home end, but that's not happening.
Well, Liverpool play at Anfield Tuesday.
Yeah.
So the day after this episode comes out. We'll see. I don't against Ajax, Champions League.
No, it will go ahead. Yeah,
it
so
will.
We'll see what happens there. I mean, like,
we know what's going to happen there.
No, we do. And do you know what? Like, the thing is, if you're gonna, pass judgment, then that's fine. Like, you judge the individuals that have, reacted the way they have. You don't have to slander the whole sport in doing so. I think that's the kind of message to take away from it all. Is you didn't have to cancel if that was their thought process, which seemingly it was, because from everything we've read and heard, it was left up to the Premier League and the EFL to essentially decide. Although it does sound like they were kind of given the nudge by the government and kind of encouraged to go a certain way. But I just think it was the wrong decision. I think it would have made far more sense to play this weekend. And then next weekend, when you've actually got to factor in the logistical stuff with the state funeral due to take place the following Monday, then it would have made more sense to postpone those games. But now we're in a situation where these weekend games have to be rearranged. Next weekend's up in the air. Potentially some European games might also not be able to go ahead. And so it's just really messy.
They've made their own headache.
Especially considering how congested this season will be.
Of course, there's loads of considerations.
Wow. On top of that, so it's going to be difficult.
It is going to be difficult. I think I was reading the earliest these games could then be played, given the fact that you've got a full schedule until the World Cup. Then you got the World Cup. It's something like mid-January to reschedule these games. That's the earliest they could be scheduled for, and so it's just going to be messy. But luckily, we do have something to talk about on this podcast, because Chelsea have done a Chelsea. It only took them 100 days to pull the trigger on Thomas Tuchel and give us something to talk about. Now, Fergal has come dressed as Graham Potter, and so I can see he's clearly on board with the decision. Mm-hmm. Let's start with the Tuchel side of it all. Obviously, since we last recorded, there was the debacle out in Zagreb, 1-0. 1-0 defeat for Chelsea.
Harry,
I know. Did you know? I was thinking of Arsenal lost 2-1 to them in a group game in like 7 years ago. And they beat Spurs. They love beating the English teams. Anyway, 1-0 defeat. Really poor performance from Chelsea, and not the first one we've seen this season. So, I mean, did we think the writing was on the wall? Did we think it would come this soon? I mean, there's just loads to unpack here.
I'll just go back to my pre-season sort of thoughts. I was pretty down on this season. I've been down. I feel like I'm not usually this pessimistic. Usually, I'm the one saying, "Can we keep him in a bit longer?" I think my thought process was, I'm happy with what's happened. However, I thought it would have been fair to give Tuchel the chance to prove the likes of me wrong. I just got the feeling that like we were never gonna really challenge for a league title under Tuchel. It had gone on quite a long time. Like the poor form, never really building up a consistent, really dominant title-looking run at all, really. And there's just like there's so many little things that he's done as well. Decisions wise, like moving on Tammy Abraham, like he just hates the players I like. Tammy Abraham and Billy Gilmore, poor Billy Gilmore's had an awful week. I mean that's the price you pay for maybe not taking the club's advice. See, I think he was asked to go on loan, and look, he will reassess when he come back. He wanted the move, he got his move. It hasn't ended up exactly how he wanted. His career can still pan out. I'm sure Brighton will be all right, but. He could have been probably maybe third or fourth choice if Potter had liked him in training, whatever, brought him straight in. But yeah, on the whole, I'm quite happy with it. I thought the fair thing would have been to leave it a bit longer for Tuchel, but at the same time, I don't think it's a wrong decision to. I was pretty convinced that we weren't going to do anything under him, really.
Yeah, on that as well. Like I famously said that I'd rather Romelu Lukaku than Thomas Tuchel. So in regards to my sentiment, it's a little bit clouded, or at least biased on what.
Who won? Because Tuchel outlasted him.
No, he didn't. He's on loan. He's on loan, isn't he? That's what I'm
He's
saying.
on
But
loan, no
cool.
option to buy, and
Yeah.
I think that was a very calculated move
Yeah.
by the owners.
Whoever sanctioned that move, and I absolutely know that he'll come back next year and fire for Graham Potter. I'm convinced of it. But on that, I mean, I'm not surprised by what's happened. I'm surprised by the timing. We've given Thomas Tuchel £250 million to seemingly buy players for his system and that he wanted. Aubameyang's absolute staple of that. Koulibaly, again, a player that Thomas Tuchel really wanted to replace Rudiger. So it seems odd to give him the transfer window and then sack him at the first hurdle, especially £250 million. That's a huge risk. I think it's the most.
I disagree.
Well,
I don't. I think a lot of them were club signings. I think the only one that he's gotten is Aubameyang. I think
no, Koulibaly's definitely a signing for Thomas Tuchel. And on top of that, I mean, no one says no to Sterling. It just seems bizarre to do it. I mean, Chelsea are bizarre. And having said that, the Graham Potter move is good in my opinion. Whether he gets the time, he probably won't. So we'll be probably speaking about his sacking next year, a year and a half, as he's not backed. But he got £250 million to spend. And the reason why he's been sacked is because all of those signings were very short term. Sterling, Koulibaly, Aubameyang, they're all there to win now, and we're not winning now. If you look at Arteta, why he didn't get sacked last year with the money that he spent, all of the players were to be bed in, young players, Odegaard, White,
Ramsdale,
Nuno
Tomiyasu, yeah.
Tavares.
Tavares,
All of these players had there was a sort of a goal in the future. While Chelsea's goal is to win now, and we're not doing that. So I'm not surprised. Apart from the timing, it's a bit odd for me.
I think you've misread what they're trying to do completely, George. And I think a lot of people have jumped on thinking that they know what Todd Bowley's doing. Very, very sure. And maybe I'm just as much guessing as everybody else is. But I think that they've come in. The way they came in was like so last minute for any sort of big business like this. There's no time really to get a sporting director set up, which would be your first first thing to do. They wanted a fresh start, so that like it's all well and good keeping Marina Granovskaya at the club, but she's linked with Abramovich, so like she was a business partner long before. So it's not good to keep like the optics and then keeping someone like that around isn't great. And then maybe keep Petr Cech.
I was going to say, do you think they could have kept Petr Cech? Because it seems
maybe
like
kept Petr Cech, but I have a feeling that he might have wanted to move on. But
no, especially with what Tuchel said about Petr Cech. He loved working with him. He was absolutely gutting that he left. So potentially, I mean, this was potentially they never wanted Tuchel in the first place.
What I was gonna say is like they've come in and then they've made those decisions about moving on the director of football sort of roles within the club. Like that's maybe a mistake, but I understand why they done those. So then they're left with like whoever's left. So Neil Bath had a big input in this summer with the younger players, the head of youth at the club. Tuchel was given responsibility, and then by all accounts didn't really want it. Flip flopped on different decisions. Said he didn't want a striker whenever Gabriel Jesus was going to Arsenal, and then said I do want a striker when Aubameyang's come in. As far as I can see, I don't think like they definitely took Tuchel's advice, but like the big deals, Cucurella, Fofana, and Sterling. I think those three, like, I think they'd be made no matter who was at the club. Really, like we needed a left back. He's the best left back, available. We got him in. Fofana, he's been raved about for a while. and he was available. We went and got him. And then Sterling just like he's Sterling's for winning now, but at the same time he'll go. He could be part of a 3-year plan. Like it's not definitely win now. And then Koulibaly, I think like that again. I think that's kind of club signing. We've been tracking Koulibaly for a long time. And it might be just one of these names that was kept about and go. He's cheaper, experienced. Replacing Rudiger, not necessarily in the exact role, but in like the leadership and the different other qualities Rudiger was meant to have. So like, but I genuinely believe Aubameyang is the only pure Tuchel signing. And then on top of that, the long term planning. How many young players have been signed by Chelsea this summer? Like there's
Oh, we
I
have
decided-
lost Fergal on a
An
on a
interesting-
glorious
That was a glorious
free-
freeze frame as well.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, that was a
That's
great
great.
freeze frame. Repeat your point, Fergal, because you froze on us there.
So and then we signed a lot of young players this summer. About five or six that have got, some have gone straight into the development squad. Someone like Chukwuemeka is in and around the first team. And the Celine is still out on loan, the goalkeeper that was signed. So the point being that Todd Bowley, I think, is planning long term. I think I would imagine like most new owners, they're eyeing up the current manager, going, does this guy really suit what we want?
Yeah.
And I think Tuchel was too short term in actually the way he was going about it. And then there's all the little things that like he wasn't happy with being given more responsibility. How many previous Chelsea managers would have loved to have a summer of I love him. How much money do I have to spend? I'll really take it over. It doesn't sound like that was the case for Tuchel. So I think that like, and then they're all said like Todd Bowley was running around, acting like the director of football, but he kind of needed to. Like, you can try and get someone in the interim. I'm sure he was getting counsel from advisors, and it sounds like he's brought in his own stats people, or consultancy sort of stats. There's lots of things that have been referred to. It was stats based and they reviewed Tuchel. On Tuchel's stats and everything like that. So when it comes to like this sacking, I think they've just seen that it's not a good fit for them, and they've made the call on it. But I wouldn't judge them on it and say like this is the this is the new owner same as the old owner. I think that they'll give Potter time because he's their guy. They went and spent 21 million on him to get in, and then whatever they paid Tuchel to leave. So they're not going half-arsed here, and I think people have been like a wee bit hasty with judging how Chelsea are being run. The place was all over the shop, and they're slowly but surely getting their ducks in a row. And I think Graham Potter. And also there's talk that there's a sporting director close to coming in, and he may have had a say in Potter being signed. So we're getting linked to Luis Campos.
There's certainly more direction now. It definitely feels that way. As much as I really like Tuchel as a person and the way he sort of connected very, very quickly with the Chelsea fans, and he brought us the Champions League. So that we sound a little bit ungrateful at the moment. He won the Club World Cup, which we've never done as a team, and he won the Champions League. So he's marked in Chelsea history as one of the most successful Chelsea managers ever, to be honest. But it was just time. Maybe I would have said earlier, but perhaps like sort of Fergal said, maybe Chelsea needed to get their shit together first.
I think it was also giving him the courtesy of seeing how the relationship was going to work.
And
over the summer transfer window. This is the thing as well. It's like you don't know what necessarily to believe. I wouldn't be surprised if Todd Bowley has a few more friends in the media than Tuchel does, and is getting these sort of stories out, sort of saying Tuchel wasn't really playing ball. Like I'm sure
Yeah.
there'll be a lot of journalists that want to be in good with the new owners.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
So
That's a
definitely
very good point.
actually.
Building up a good
a
relationship.
very
Oh
good
yeah, I'll
point.
do that story for you.
Because
So-
I wouldn't guess one of those stories would have been the story about the recruitment team drawing up or Todd Bowley, I think it was, drawing a 4-3-3 formation on a tactics board in a recruitment meeting with Thomas Tuchel.
Yeah,
that
I
was one
didn't
of
know if that
stories.
was serious or not.
You generally don't know what to believe,
No.
but it does feel like there was a relationship gap between Tuchel and the board. But Thomas Tuchel just came out a couple hours ago with a 3-2 statement. This is one of the most difficult statements I have ever had to write, and it's one which I hoped I would not need to write for many years. So this is, if we do believe Thomas Tuchel himself, although his account on Twitter is not verified for some reason.
Yeah.
Also,
I've never seen him tweet
official
anything, so-
account. Yeah, it does
I
have
didn't think he was
319.6 thousand.
I think it is
did not
him.
know.
I think it is him.
I did not know they had a Twitter account until this statement. Maybe it's new. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm devastated that my
Did
time
he
at Chelsea
post? Sorry,
comes to
did
an
he
end.
post pictures? I saw pictures of him in a tennis outfit.
I
Did anybody
don't know.
see
I'm
that?
just reading the statement. He's just like he posted a picture of him like celebrating, just fist bumping. Yeah, Chelsea Jack and trousers. This is a club where I felt at home, both professionally and personally. Thank you so much to all the staff and the players and supporters for making me feel welcome. Yada yada yada. And it sounded like he wanted to stay on for a lot longer than he eventually
and I
did.
believe that.
I do because this is coming from his account. So I don't know what to believe in the media anymore. My initial thought was it's he just couldn't work with the board, but then he says that I wanted to stay for many years. I don't know.
Well, I mean, both can be true.
Both can be true, yeah.
In terms of, I mean, the way he committed himself to Chelsea while we went through that takeover saga, he deserves a lot of credit for the way he handled himself and how he handled the situation. And I just don't like his style of play. Like, and football is unfortunately for him, massively
grateful.
built on the eye test and also on results, and it just hasn't been working recently. And I wish him the best in going forward. I hope he does find a position that he can just be the coach. It seems like he just wants to be a coach, and solely focus on the tactical side of things with the players. So I hope he can find that.
He needs to get better on the training ground then, because we've been looking at the same thing for about a year. But yeah, no, like I never quite warmed to Tuchel.
I like him as a person, not his coaching. His football is awful. It's turgid football.
It's not turgid.
I do like him,
ungrateful bastard.
I know, but it's turgid football.
No, it's not turgid. It's not turgid.
Give me a Champions League.
It's the most boring football. I promise you, it's the most boring football of any team in the Premier
You're
League.
lying. The Champions League season was entertaining from Chelsea.
I think recently it has been really bad. Like
It's not recently.
Outside of cup competitions.
I think he's a cup manager. I've said this before. I think his style of football suits cup football. I mean, he got to 2 cup finals last year. He won the Champions League.
Yeah.
I think he suits preparing for a specific opposition, and they've played very well in some of the big games. But over a 38-game season, they've come up short. They don't have enough solutions to win enough games. I'm totally on board with that idea. I think and he won't see it this way now. I think it's almost better that he's got sacked now and not kind of got to the end of the season. And the way Chelsea were going, they could have finished 7th or 8th. Like the way they've been playing under him,
because he hasn't been given a chance to ruin his
stock's not gone low enough. I think that he'll get a top job.
His time at Chelsea will be with rose-tinted glasses.
Yeah,
and it'll look back at. We were champions of Europe and one of the best teams in Europe for the amount of time he was at the club. In actual fact, that wasn't the case. But he won the Champions League, unbelievable. I enjoyed that very much.
Yeah,
and that first 6 months or so was incredible. What he changed, within the club and the automation within the team and the defensive structure was like incredible. I had a lot of fun at that time, but I just thought it would kick on, and it never it
didn't.
never kicked on.
I think actually the sanctions, granted they weren't helpful for what went on the pitch, but it maybe leads people to reflect a little bit more positively on last season than in fact what was produced, because Chelsea took a nosedive, particularly sort of from December onwards. Their form was very patchy, and in fact they only got into the top four because they built up such a lead on the teams that ended up finishing behind them. And so, when people talk about has it come too soon, they probably forget the way Chelsea finished last season, and actually this is a slide that's kind of been going on for longer than people are probably aware of, and you guys probably see that because you watch them every week. But people that reflect on it from outside perhaps don't. And so if we move the conversation on, and if we're saying, okay, Tuchel isn't the solution to get Chelsea where they need to be, surely you must then acknowledge by the same token, there's a lot of there's unknowns with Graham Potter. This is a much bigger job than anything he's taken on in his career to date. I think he's been excellent at Brighton, but granted expectations are a lot lower. And so how does his style, how does his philosophy translate into a bigger club? And then why will that make Chelsea successful?
Well, he's had to work with very limited strikers in the past, so I think he's got the perfect clientele and ability in that front line to suit him. So I think he'll fit straight in because of that.
Yeah, what's interesting with Graham Potter is that he's built his career so far on doing a lot more than the resources that he has. 4 promotions in Sweden. Getting Brighton and Hove Albion completely established in the Premier League with more quality, they would have finished higher up in the table in the past 2 to 3 seasons. It is an interesting move from Chelsea because it's not what we're used to in terms of the style of manager that they have. No, he's not won trophies in England yet. He's still, but his career age is young. He's not had many seasons at the elite level yet. I feel like Chelsea might be going into a period of long-term building into something with a completely different identity than what we've seen even in the first kind of 100 days of.
We say this, but if you look back on history, Chelsea have invested in young managers. Jose Mourinho was young when he came in. He wasn't proven in the Premier League.
Champions League winner.
He was the Champions League
No, but he wasn't proven. He was talking about proven in the Premier League. Jose
but that's
Mourinho
not the same. It's not the same thing.
Right, okay, but let me finish. You've also got Roberto Di Matteo. You got Frank Lampard.
Frank Lampard was due to a very specific set of circumstances.
What's that?
You still took the risk, though. You could have went.
Your stock as a club was so low that you.
No, it wasn't. No, not
that time.
But anyway,
it absolutely was. It was the lowest it's ever been in the 20th.
You haven't even let me finish the number of managers. So you got Villas-Boas. You got Jose Mourinho. Yes, that's what I'm saying. So Ali's point is that we've changed. No, we've always invested in young managers.
Di Matteo was an interim manager, so I think the only one of those managers you've named.
Signed him on,
then you sacked him straight away because he won the Champions League.
Right, let me finish my point.
Come on.
We invest in young managers. We invest in young managers and sack them. So obviously it's a new board, but whether Chelsea change or not is not because we signed a young manager who's slightly unproven. No, that happens all the time at Chelsea, and they'll get sacked because they won't perform.
I don't think it happens all the time.
He's not going to get sacked straight away. He will not get sacked in 2 years.
We'll see. I mean, if he finishes outside the top 4,
no, they won't sack him. I think the optics if they sack him will just be terrible because.
I think it all depends on the context of it. If he finishes
mid-table, then it's not working.
Well, then they still look stupid, don't they? Because they've appointed a guy that's made them worse. I think they'll look to give him as much of a chance as possible because I think it reflects poorly on them if they don't. Because they've made a very big point of coming out and saying, "Look, Tuchel wasn't our man. We want to get someone in who is our guy that we're going to back for the long term." And this signals a change in approach as a club. We want to go about it a different way. And I think if you abandon that at the first opportunity, then you'll lose the trust of people because then they'll think, well, what are you actually here to do? Because you've come in, you've made it clear this is what your plan is, and then at the first sign of trouble, you've abandoned that. So I do think they'll give him a chance, but I think there's unknowns. I think he's a smart guy. He's a good communicator. He's a good tactician. I think he's a bit of a tinkerer for a big club. So it's going to be interesting to see, especially in this age of football where at a big club you have to have your way of playing predominantly. And I think
Chelsea at the moment, though.
I'm not saying pragmatism
in
doesn't
this
suit.
moment, I think it suits us to be able to maybe switch to a slow transition into a 4 at the back, but a tinker playing 3 the odd time, and the other thing about Graham Potter is I've noticed that Thomas Frank and Hasenhüttl and possibly some of the other managers seem to be really happy that he got the job, like as if they was sort of like, oh, big clubs in England are giving guys that haven't won anything within the league but have done well a chance, and it felt like every I know Thomas Frank and Hasenhüttl both were like, yeah, no, he sort of deserved it. He's done very well. So he got like this seal of approval from his peers anyway. But with how, look, I'm excited to see what he does. I'm interested to see. I haven't really paid too much close attention to his his personality. Really, I haven't really seen. He just seems like, I don't know,
Normal dude.
Yeah,
Gareth Southgate with a PhD.
Yeah, that's good.
I think that sort of like figure. But then again, he was it when the Brighton ones were booing him. He gave them a bit back, and rightly so.
yeah, that's right.
So like,
Yeah.
it'd just be interesting to see how he handles the pressure.
But
And the ego of someone like Aubameyang, who I'm sure
Yeah.
his nose is out of joint as well as his jaw at the moment after Tuchel got moved on.
There's 2 things that really worry me. That I think could go wrong. One is player management. Big egos. He's obviously not been proven to be able to do that. He might be fantastic.
But
There's an unknown.
That's a huge unknown. The second one is he's been applauded for his style of play at a smaller team. But when that happens, when you step into a bigger club, what he'll find is teams won't give him the respect that he had at Brighton. There'll be bodies behind the ball, even more so now. And people like to beat teams like Arsenal and Chelsea or get points from them. And they're a lot more pragmatic when they play them rather than playing at Brighton. So will it slip into another sort of Tuchel or other big managers at the moment like Klopp that they're finding it really difficult to break these teams down because they're so pragmatic? When you're a big name and you're a big club, teams play differently against you as they should, as they have an absolute right to do. So how he adapts to that, whether he can actually play exciting football and that high metric football with a different context and a different team, is again unknown. And I think, yeah, you sort of hit the nail on the head there, Harry, where it's like we just don't know yet. But it seems like the right profile.
I tell you, although like it's a shame the game's been cancelled, it's great for Potter if he gets 2 weeks to on the training ground drilling them on his new tactics. Like it's all, like a mini pre-season. Like, it's ideal for Chelsea that.
Yeah, it would be in his interest, I think. I think that game against Fulham, and Fulham are playing well at the moment, it would have been tricky with 1 day's training. Look, they might have got a new manager bounce. You just don't know how these things work. But if the breaks come at a good time for anyone, it's probably Chelsea and Liverpool, which we'll come on to in a second, Ali. But, I mean, just looking at Chelsea's games, like, you got Palace in there, Wolves, Brentford, and then United. Like, there's some tricky ones in there. There's not many gimmies in those. Don't get me wrong, you should win them as Chelsea.
There's no gimmies in the Premier League, though. The only gimmies are.
I think there's half a dozen teams that I would look at and say you should beat home and away. Like, and that might be disrespectful, but that's just how I see it.
Most of those teams are in there, but there's no.
No, I wouldn't say so. I would say Palace away as that could be his first game if the Liverpool game
as well
doesn't go ahead. Well, the Fulham game's off, so you're looking at Liverpool next weekend, which at the moment is unclear whether it goes ahead. Then you got Palace at Selhurst Park. You probably should beat Wolves, but it's not easy. That's my point. And it'd be interesting to see how quickly he gets his stamp on the team. Before we move on, just I suppose, what players do you think will benefit most from this? Both Tuchel leaving and Potter coming in. Are there any that stand out? Apart from Lukaku.
Cucurella.
Yeah.
I think.
I've been saying it. Ben Chilwell, great goal he scored.
Yeah, he made the difference.
Oh yeah, that was a great goal. Very
So
improvised.
I don't know. It might we do two brilliant left backs.
I think the midfielders will benefit most. I think the sort of more attacking minded midfielders. So I think Ruben Loftus-Cheek will benefit. I think
There's talk that he really likes Jorginho.
Oh no!
Hey, all right, that would be interesting.
But it's like, unless he's playing three in midfield, I don't want to see Jorginho.
He'll definitely play three in the midfield. He does that at Brighton. Whoever takes up sort of the Pascal Gross and Solly March roles will be interesting.
Mount will be in there.
Mount will be in there. I think Loftus-Cheek will be in there until Kovacic is completely back in the team. But we'll see. I think they're the players.
I think it's better for the younger players that Potter's in. It'd be interesting to see, like, obviously with Brighton he had to develop players. Like, he had no choice in the matter. It'd be interesting to see now he has the choice. Am I interested in developing, or am I gonna go for the win every time and pick the best team every time? It'd be interesting now he has that choice. What he'll do. But I'd imagine he was signed with the idea in mind of developing players, because the new ownership hasn't signed all these youngsters for them to rot on the bench, especially 20 million Chukwuemeka. He'll need to get game time. I'm still not what position is Chukwuemeka? I'm still not entirely sure.
Centre mid.
He's like, but like, what type of centre mid?
He is like yeah, he's more attacking minded, but has defensive capabilities.
Okay.
Like Oxlade Chamberlain,
whenever I saw
play
him for Villa, I thought he was like more of almost like a number 10, but that's not the case.
Yeah, him and Calvin Ramsey were similar at Villa.
Yeah, be interesting to see. I mean, I hope
Calvin
they flop.
Ramsey? What's he called? Calvin Ramsey?
There's two Ramseys. I think there's
no Jacob Ramsey. Calvin Ramsey's the guy.
Yeah, the guy we signed. That's
right back.
What I was confused.
And then there's Aaron Ramsey is his brother that's on loan at Norwich.
There's an Aaron Ramsey.
There's another
Aaron Ramsey at Aston Villa.
All right.
Interesting.
You can no longer sing "There's only one Aaron Ramsey," unfortunately.
Well, there will be soon. He's not got long left.
In fairness, it's a more unique song. There's only two Aaron Ramseys.
Because
There's only two. That's great. Love that. Anyway, moving on. And I did mention before teams that perhaps this little interlude might have come at a good time for. Liverpool, Ali. Now, since we last spoke,
he's got to go.
He's got to go. They put in it's not. Do you know what? It's not often you see a team concede 4 goals and the XG actually be more than what they've conceded. I mean, it really could have been 6s and 7s.
Yeah.
Just
it could have been 5-0 first. It could have been one of those Philadelphia Union games that have been happening recently. We've won by 4 goals in 4 of the last 5 games. Where it's like
nice try. Nice try, Ali. Nice try to.
Thank you. I just want to feel good.
Yeah, it was a good attempt. But if you could stick to the topic at matter here, please.
Thank you.
Liverpool are struggling, and we said they were struggling last week. So I was going to say what's changed. What hasn't changed? What is going on here?
Okay, so it started in the summer with Mane getting sold and us signing Darwin Nunez, and I won't get into this again. But I do think we've downgraded up front. But that's okay.
Yeah.
I have 2 problems here. One is that we've changed Mo Salah's role very deliberately. It appears that he's now much wider and has a lot more chance creation responsibility and takes way less shots than he does. Granted, he missed 2 open goals against Bournemouth,
Yeah.
but he's taking way less shots. He has 4 shots on target all season. Granted, the 2 open goals against Burnley were off target for some reason, but whatever. 1-9-0 that game. The other thing is, he really thought signing, and this is a little bit baffling, and sometimes managers do get things wrong. It's fine, but it is baffling that having signed Carvalho, Jurgen Klopp thought it was enough for this midfield, the midfield that has Chamberlain, incredibly injury prone, just injured all of the time. Naby Keita could never really get his career started at Liverpool, and whenever it looks promising, he just dips. And now he's like there. I thought he was injured, but then he was called up by the Guinea national team.
Yeah, he's left out the Champions League squad, wasn't he? Or registration.
He was. Yeah, I don't know what's happening there, and nobody knows really. But and then he came out and said, "Oh no, we don't need any more midfielders," and started listing off the Liverpool midfield, and it's like, what do you think we're where do you think we're short? What are we missing? Yeah, something along those lines. And then at the end of the window, the last 3 days of the window, comes out and says, "No, we do need a midfielder." So this is a pretty big mistake, because if you do like any sort of thinking, there was a great tweet today about Jorginho Wijnaldum, who we've never replaced, and I've been banging the drum, and I won't say I know more than any manager in the world, let alone Klopp, but
yeah,
we haven't replaced him, and I thought we needed to, because Wijnaldum is, first of all, has an amazing stamina, an amazing set of defensive capabilities, both like in terms of actual timing of tackles, to the way he shepherds, you know, the transition of the opposition team away from goal. So he would engage the dribbler in a way that both has no risk of fouling, but also forces a back pass, just with engaging with his body positioning. And there are few midfielders in the world that can do this and also have good transitional attacking qualities. He could break lines with his dribbling, and we've not replaced that.
Yeah, but I also don't.
Like Jorginho and Wijnaldum in midfield, we do not get like just torn like apart straight down the middle, regardless of our performance, regardless of the energy levels or the work ethic that's not being shown at the moment or anything. And
you haven't replaced him.
And we haven't replaced him. And the type of player that we have brought in, just panicking really, is Artur, who is a more of a creative player, and his creative numbers are great per 90. His playing time isn't amazing, but is still not the type of midfielder we need defensively, because the most 3 defensive players we have at the moment in midfield are Henderson, who has lost his legs, Milner, who has played 90 minutes most games.
Do you know what? On Milner, I actually feel sorry for Milner, because I reckon when they went to him and said, we want to give you another year, I think that contract was probably signed under the impression that he'd be playing League Cup games and like 15 minutes off the bench probably every other week, like seeing games out. I think he's probably played more minutes already this season than he was probably expecting to for like the majority of the campaign. And I think
he's meant to be top of the fitness.
I know, but it's criminal, mate. He's 37.
Every year.
Mate, the age curve gets all of us.
Fitness doesn't mean speed at the same time.
No, it doesn't. I think you're right about Wijnaldum. Like, you haven't replaced him, but I equally think that you were right to let him go. Like, you look at what he's done since he's gone. The grass isn't always greener. So what I would say is, you haven't replaced his profile in the squad. That I do agree with. If you go through all your centre midfielders and kind of what they offer, and they all have their own strengths, even though you might not like most of them as players, none of them are close to replicating what he is able to do in that system, or was able to in that system. And so, in that aspect, I do agree with you. But I also think that sometimes the smart thing to do is to let them go. And like, it's difficult to argue with what you've done over the last 6-7 years in terms of your recruitment, letting players go at the right time, picking players up at the right time. But I think it's just gone a little bit stale. I think you see a core group of players. I mean, there was a graphic that I saw the other week, which was the starting 11 against Man United in the game you lost 2-1.
Yep.
And there was it was something like the starting 11 4 years ago when you beat Leicester in a game 2-1.
Yeah.
And the starting 11 in that game was exactly the same, bar obviously Mane, who's gone, and then Matip played, and he's injured, so he would have played.
Yeah.
So you can see why they've lost a little bit there.
Do you think that Klopp has a point though in regards to numbers? Like when he talked about he didn't need a midfielder, you've got 9 midfielders in that squad. You've got Fabinho, Thiago, Milner, Keita, Henderson, Oxlade-Chamberlain, obviously, Curtis Jones, Harvey Elliott, Cavallo. Now, obviously, you're talking about profile of players. Clearly, Klopp thought or thinks that Curtis Jones, Elliott, Henderson, Milner, and Cavallo are all good enough to replace that position. Now, I disagree. In fact, I don't think Curtis Jones, Harvey Elliott, Milner, or Henderson get in any of the top 6, maybe even 7 midfield in the Premier League. Genuinely, in fact, I think they struggle to get on the bench. Harvey Elliott, I think we speak about.
He's a
Harvey
good player.
Elliott.
I don't think he's a centre mid.
But he's not. It's not just he's not a centre mid. He's not consistent enough. He's also he's. Look, he might be great in the future.
Prick as well.
But he's not that good. He's not that good. I promise you, he's not. He doesn't light up the Premier League. He just doesn't. I'm sorry, but if you want to talk about sort of Liverpool standards, if you want to be
that's
competing
the point. That is the point.
For titles, you've got to be keeping up with the likes of Chelsea and Man City. Exactly, it's Liverpool. You should hold yourself to higher standards, and I think Klopp has failed to do that. Maybe budget restraints. You don't really know what's going on in the background. Whether he truly believes that they're good enough, or whether he's just saying
the
that.
FSG, the baseball team is don't they do like rebuild years and basically have a year off, so to speak.
We haven't had like 2 seasons in a row where we've been, apart from 18-19 and 19-20. We haven't had 2 years in a row where we've been good. So after 19-20 comes the season where we just about get into the Champions League with an amazing run at the end of the season. Last season we were on for a quadruple. This season looks like it's a little bit backwards, so it seems a bit up and down right now.
It feels like you just went for it last year, last hurrah for that front three, and then Mane's moved on. And he's now in a small bit of transition, and he's waiting for Jude Bellingham.
Hopefully so. I would love Jude Bellingham. But I just want to respond to a few points that George made here, and you
don't think Harvey Elliott's a prick?
Say what?
That was your point.
No. I because he said about Klopp not getting it right, and I agree, but budget restrictions, I don't think that's the case because of what he came out and said it directly in front of the press, where he said we don't need a midfielder, and then comes out and says we will get a midfielder, and did get one with an option of future free.
But Klopp lies all the time. He lies about injuries. He lies about transfer. He keeps everything under wraps, and as he should. He's trying to keep the media away from Liverpool.
Lies about Arsenal within the team.
But I think, yeah.
Maybe you have a point.
I think he was being a politician with all that talk.
Absolutely.
I thought he was just protecting FSG. And playing ball, and I would say he's probably on board with it. He probably understands what the situation they're in, and he's like, it's like, do you go and spend 30 million on a midfielder that you don't totally believe in, or do you go next year spend 80 million, get the player that you want, and that's going to be brilliant for you?
But a big team, Fergal, buys Bellingham now. A big team,
if they can afford it, yeah.
Well, Liverpool can afford it.
I forget the metric.
If they really wanted, they would get it.
But if they really wanted to this season, but as far as I know, Dortmund aren't budging this season, and so to get him this season is like over 100 million, whereas next year it probably won't be over 100 million.
Mm.
So it's all well and good you saying go get him now, but if Dortmund aren't playing ball, you'll end up being like United with Anthony. It'll be we'll set our price and we're not budging. You'll pay.
But that's what I'm saying is a big team like United gets him.
Yeah,
They
but he's
get
not
them.
very good, is he?
I don't agree. I think it's smart. It's smart. Clearly the way FSG run, they're not running like Chelsea or Man United, and so I think it's unfair to compare them to those two. They've always been trying to run on a bit of a profit. Like the only time they spent was when they sold Coutinho and stuff like that. So I like you can debate whether they should be spending more of their profits than they should be to be a big team. But in terms of like what they've assigned themselves to spend, I think it's smarter to do what they're doing. It might cost them, but I think it makes
It'll cost them league titles and it cost them Champions League. They're not going to progress. But
it's for a season.
No, it's not a season.
And
They've won
then get
one Premier
Bellingham
League.
in, and then you set up with Bellingham for the next 10 years or whatever.
Do you remember the way Liverpool bought Naby Keita? So
Yeah.
it was a long negotiation that happened in 2017, and it ended up with whatever the fee was, like 50 million euros, I think.
Yeah.
For the year after.
Yeah.
I would think that Liverpool learned from that. They obviously do want Bellingham. I don't think this is any secret. But maybe part of their thinking is let's not make the same mistake here. And if we're not going to be able to get him now for like a reasonable, because at the end of the day, you're taking business decisions, and FSG don't just own Liverpool Football Club, and that's an unfortunate part of it. But they have been successful, so whatever. You don't want to make the same mistake again, and if you can still buy a incredible young player and one of already the best in the world for next year, if he's in the same form and we still want him, then sure. I think that's what's happened there.
The one that doesn't make any sense was why Liverpool never seemed to be going in for Camavinga whenever he was available.
I don't know.
I
don't know.
I'm surprised more clubs didn't go in.
I don't think he wanted to go to Liverpool. He wanted to go to Real Madrid.
If I remember that transfer window, that deal was done quite late on in the transfer window. I don't think it was an early one. And Liverpool won something that the season before.
Tchouaméni. Well, it was Camavinga last summer, Tchouaméni this summer, and they both.
Tchouaméni this summer, and he didn't want to go. But I felt like Camavinga felt like Madrid only went for him quite late on in the window. I seem to remember. Again, I could be wrong with that, but that's the way I remember it. And I remember me and you, Ali, talking about why haven't they went for Camavinga, or why even more clubs went for him at the price that he was. But particularly Liverpool to replace Wijnaldum.
Yeah, I don't know, but I just want to like step away from transfer talk for a second and squad building, and just like acknowledge the fact that this season so far, it's not a question of quality or lineups or squad selection or injuries or anything like that, and we've had all of those problems together. Work rate and just like motivation has not been there. We have been consistently, and I don't want to sound like an old man shouting at clouds or whatever however the phrase goes, but we are being outran.
Not had that one before, I'll be honest.
No, we are being outran, and this is weird. This is very weird that we don't like just run and chase after 50-50s and track the second goal Anguissa against us in the Napoli game.
This is Liverpool.
Was just like comical. What is this? Like, how are 4 defenders surrounding 2 players and he just gets to play a 1-2 as if they're like, mannequins in the training ground? It's horrific, and it's strange, and I hope that Tuesday is just like, okay, let's realize that this is not us, and at least put on a better show of work ethic. This is it's not been good enough, just effort wise, really. I don't know what else to say. It's that simple, really. Just put in the work.
It's
It's not an easy run
It's
coming
really
up either.
weird. It's really weird. It's surreal.
No, I was going to say, in 3 of your next 5 get in the league, at least, you got Chelsea, if it goes
It's gonna be
ahead,
such an interesting game,
Arsenal,
Chelsea.
and Man City. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it's a big run. And in the Champions League now, I mean,
what's
look, I
Potter's
still...
record with Brighton against Liverpool?
I don't think
It's
very
good.
Is it?
No, yeah.
Well, they got a
he's
draw,
taken
didn't they?
Yeah, they drew us. I know they took a draw last season at Anfield.
Oh, they beat you. They beat you in the COVID season.
They beat us in the
Anfield.
COVID season, and
That's
they
right.
drew in
Yeah.
the COVID season. So they took 4 points from us.
Yeah. That's right.
Season
That's right. I
4
forgot.
months.
I've like etched that season out of my memory. It just doesn't exist to me, quite frankly. So I've forgotten about
I
that.
don't blame you.
How long does it go on for serious talk of Klopp getting sacked? Because especially without any major injuries like the season they did have.
In my heart of hearts, I know it's not going to happen. And I know this run will go on. I just know.
What would he have to do to get sacked?
Hypothetically speaking, to answer your question,
Come
Harry,
into the crowd naked.
well, yeah, be racist. I don't know.
Yeah.
Say stuff like that. If we don't win any of the next 3 Champions League games, 4 games in the Premier League, not only don't win, but if the performances and the results are similar to Napoli, then we can start talking.
Really? I would have thought if you outside the top 4 and you don't win any of the cups, that by the end of the season you should sack Klopp.
Here's the take I do have, regardless of how this season pans out. This is Jurgen Klopp's last season with Liverpool, I think.
Wow.
Interesting.
Oh, that is big. And so
Yeah.
you think? Well, he just signed a new deal, though, Ali.
But on top of that, there's no man. So what I didn't say actually about Potter is there any managers out there that maybe Pochettino that any big club
Not
wants?
Pochettino.
Not Poch.
But no, but like you think Pochettino's kind of a Liverpool kind of.
No, he's not.
No, but
I can see your point.
Is
there any managers that you'd want to replace?
So overrated. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. He had 2 good seasons at Spurs and they didn't win anything. It's unbelievable how overrated he is.
So not even Pochettino then. Who would Liverpool want to replace Klopp with? Like who's better than Klopp? You really don't want Gerrard.
It's not a question of who's better. It's not a question of who's better.
The question is who's the best manager of the world out of Klopp and Pep. You don't have to upgrade every single time, but you can go get a Stefano Pioli. I'd like to see Stefano Pioli manage Liverpool, current AC Milan manager. I'd love to see that.
It's just whether he's reached the end of the road. I don't know. Like it's unclear to me basically how much of this is caused by injuries. You're in transition. Or whether you've just reached the end of the cycle with him. And if you have, then obviously there are a lot of better managers than him for Liverpool at this moment in time. To me, they're better managers, period. It just means that they're better moving forwards.
I can't see Pioli managing Liverpool just because he wears bracelets. I can't see a manager that wears bracelets managing Liverpool.
Good point.
Wow, I think that's going to have to be the title of the episode because I mean that is. I did not think you were going to come out with that, Ali. I've got to be honest with you.
I will make sure to put it at the start of the episode on YouTube.
Absolute shot. It's either that or it's old men shouting at clouds. I have to go and Google this now after this finishes. Yeah, it's.
It sounds like a sitcom that needs to be written. Old man shouting at clouds.
I'm not even going to Google that. I'm trying to work out what you were talking about.
Is it shouting at the sea?
Yelling at
Yelling at the sea?
Yelling at the sea.
Old man shouting at clouds. Old man shouting at clouds. Know your meme. Old man yells at cloud is an exploitable image of a gag headline featured in the 2002 episode of The Simpsons.
Interesting.
Abe shouting at a cloud. It's a meme-based thing.
Yeah, you.
Well, there you go.
That's
what came to mind.
I swear I've heard it before. I swear.
Well, there you go.
I've heard something like that before. I thought it was like sort of yelling at a void or yelling at the sea. Wasn't there somebody that tried? Wasn't there a king or someone that yelled at the sea, try to make it go? Something like that. I'm talking shite now as well.
You're talking shite. You're talking
we're all
absolute
talking
cobblers. I think at risk of becoming old men shouting at the cloud, whatever that means, let's wrap it up for the night.
Yeah.
There's no just another fantasy to talk about this week. We've done our duty.
I've got some clouds to go shout at.
I've got some clouds to go shout at. Exactly. So otherwise, indisposed for the rest of the evening. So thank you very much, guys, for your time as always.
Appreciate.
Thank you for listening. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you figured out whatever the hell Ali was talking about. And we'll catch you all in the next one. Thanks for listening.
Go away.
Cheers.
Brilliant.